My dear students, welcome to this massive open online course on Indian Economics 1. Today, we shall discuss the module 3 of this particular course in Unit 1, namely planning and the strategies followed during the 5-year plans in India. Now, after the completion of this particular module, you will be acquainted with the process of the strategies followed by our planners during the plan period, the implication of those strategies during the plan period, and you will understand how and why there has been a shift in that particular strategies during the plan period. Let us now first start with the basic concept of the strategy. What is a strategy, plan strategy? Planning strategy is nothing but the long-run policies which are implemented by the planners and policymakers to attain the targets or planned targets in different 5-year plans. Since early 1950s, in fact from 1951, India started with its first 5-year plan with the duration of 1951-56. And this 5-year plan, every 5-year plan wanted to achieve some particular targets. For example, the growth targets or distribution targets. So to achieve any particular target, plan target, you must have some strategy. For example, even in any war, there is a war between countries. There is a strategy to how to win in that particular war. Similarly, in case of planning also, we find that every country which are following the planned economy, they are adopting some particular strategy in any particular plan to attain those objectives or the goals or the targets of that particular plan. Now let us start with the strategy which India adopted during the first 5-year plan, during 1951-56. The first 5-year plan, it was just after independence, and you must have been acquainted with what was the condition of Indian economy at the time of independence in our earlier module. So, after independence, the main challenge before India was to, improve the economic condition. That means the condition of Indian agriculture. So, the first 5-year plan gave more emphasis, the strategy gave more emphasis on Indian agriculture, and side by side, the expansion with some of the infrastructural facilities, namely transport and communication, irrigational facilities, which will help our agriculture to grow. That means this strategy can be considered as an unbalanced strategy. Okay? Unbalanced growth strategy means you are not giving importance to all the sectors at a time because you do not have enough capital to invest in all those sectors together. So you are following an unbalanced growth strategy. So first 5-year plan giving more importance to agriculture can safely be considered as a strategy which was unbalanced. Now coming to the second 5-year plan, which began from 1956 and continued up to 1961. Now, there was a shift in the second 5-year plan regarding the strategy, plan strategy. In second 5-year plan, the strategy was expansion of heavy and core sector industries. That is, giving more importance to industrialization. And during second 5-year plan, the plan model was built by Prashanta Chandra Mahalanobis, who was the founder of Indian Statistical Institute. And that plan model, while building that plan model, while framing the plan model, he was influenced by the Russian plan, which began in 1928. So that model, that strategy, while giving more importance to Indian heavy industries, it was a two-sector model. One sector was investment sector, the other sector was consumer goods sector. And the productivity of capital in case of industry sector or investment sector was assumed to be higher than the productivity of capital in case of consumer goods sector. And more investment was allotted to this heavy industrial sector. And it was assumed that although during short run the GDP growth may be lower, But this greater emphasis on heavy industries in this particular plan model can lead to higher growth in the long run, higher growth in the GDP in the long run. So what we observe that during the second five-year plan model, it was also an unbalanced growth strategy. In development economics, you will find that some theories, okay, they indicate this unbalanced growth strategy, and it was actually popularized by Albert Hirschman and Hans Singer. So in Singer and Hirschman model, we find this type of unbalanced growth strategy where they provided a model where an economy gives first more importance to some social overhead capital, or it can give more importance to directly productive activities. So what we observed during second five-year plan, it gave more importance to some of the heavy industry sector, so it was an unbalanced growth strategy. And from other point of view, it was a strategy of import substitution growth strategy. That means India wanted to produce some of the products, engineering goods and other engineering commodities or industrial goods, which she used to import from the foreign countries. So India wanted to produce some of the products, industrial products itself within the country. So it was an import substitution policy, or more importantly, it was an inward-looking policy as opposed to outward-looking policy. So that was all about this Mahalanobis plan model followed during the second five-year plan. But that plan strategy, that model which assumed that with the expansion of these heavy industries, the linkage effect will gradually lead to expansion of this consumer goods industry and other small and medium sector industries so as to create more employment, and consumer goods industry will also develop. But ultimately it was observed that those assumptions were not fulfilled. So during the third five-year plan, there was a shift in the strategy, and we find balanced growth strategy during the third five-year plan. The balanced growth strategy during third five-year plan, that means during 1961-66, it actually gave emphasis to both agriculture as well as industry. But here, industry was not heavy industry, small scale and medium scale industries, so as to generate more and more employment opportunities. Okay, so in third five-year plan, the strategy was a balanced growth strategy, giving more importance to both agriculture as well as industries. But what we observe, please notice that during 1961-66, there was two important events that happened. One particular important factor is 1962 Indo-China War and 1965 Indo-Pak War. So there was huge investment made by the government, say this war expenses, that led to paucity of fund for the government to adopt any further plan. So during 1966-69, there was a plan holiday. So the fourth plan started in 1969 and continued up to 1974. So what happened? In fourth plan, the strategy again shifted. As I have already told you that during third five-year plan, there was a balanced growth strategy, giving importance to both agriculture as well as industry. But in the fourth five-year plan, there was a strategy which gave more importance to technological revolution in Indian agriculture. So modernization of agriculture was the strategy. And in this strategy, it focused mainly on the adoption of high-yielding varieties of seeds, the adoption of chemical fertilizer, and adoption of improved appliances so as to improve the productivity in agriculture. That means average yield per hectare should be improved. And ultimately what we observe that in the late 1960s, we observe there was a green revolution in the form of huge improvement in the productivity of wheat in case of India. And subsequently, you will observe that some other crops also indicated high yielding varieties, and they also led to that the higher productivity for several other crops. Now coming to fifth five-year plan, there was a shift again in the strategy followed during the fifth five-year plan, which was the duration was 1974-78 instead of 74-79. The reason was different because in 1979-80 and 78-79 and 79-80, this 2 year was called as the rolling 5-year plan. So there was a change in the mode of the planning. So this period was 74 to 78. During this period, the strategy emphasized on the growth with distribution. Growth with distribution. That means not only growth in terms of output, but also the distribution of that income among the common people was also received due importance during the 5th 5-year plan. Now, how to achieve more growth? Now, here we can show you with the help of a simple model. We call it Harrod-Domar model, where G means the growth rate of income. Here, please see that YT means income or output at the time period T minus YT minus 1, that is output at the period T minus 1. That means YT minus 1 means change in output during that time period divided by the original output, that means YT, that means the rate of growth of output. So this rate of growth of output is del Y by Y, and it can be expressed in terms of del Y by del K into del K by Y. What is del K? Del K means change in the stock of capital. In fact, the change in stock of capital means investment. And del Y by del K, it means productivity of capital. If you increase your investment in capital item, then how much it will lead to an increment in your gross output. Okay, that means the productivity of capital. And the inverse of that, that means del K by del Y, the terminology is incremental capital output ratio. What is the meaning? It means that to increase your output by 1 unit, how much capital you need. That is called incremental capital output ratio. It is a technological term. So the technology in the economy can ensure that what will be your ICOR, incremental capital output ratio. It is indicated by that V. Now, if the technology is constant, then this V is constant and it is multiplied by I by Y ratio. That means out of the output in an economy, what proportion of that output is invested? It is called investment income ratio. And we know that at equilibrium, investment and savings in an economy, they are equal. So I by Y ratio means S means savings. S by Y means saving income ratio. So if you want to attain a particular growth rate G, and if your V, that is incremental capital output ratio is given, it is constant, then to increase your output, you need to increase that saving income ratio. So the small s has to be increased. So that was one, way out for increasing your output. And the planners also believed that if in the agricultural sector, if output can be increased by 4%, then you can ensure that proper increase in per capita consumption expenditure or per capita consumption of common products, okay, mass consumption items, so that you can ensure growth with distribution. And there was another target in this particular plan period was self-sufficiency, and this self-sufficiency implied that at the terminal year of that particular planning, your import should be zero. That means you must not depend on the foreigners. That means your gross domestic savings must be equal to your gross investment at the terminal year. So this was the strategy that was being followed by the planners during 5th 5-year plan. Now coming to the 6th 5-year plan. The 6th 5-year plan here, the objective was to attain a structural transformation with which want to ensure a high and sustained growth along with progressive improvement in the standard of living of the common people. That means in 5th 5-year plan, the strategy was growth with distribution. This actually, it was again reflected in the strategy of the 6th 5-year plan, which wanted to ensure that the standard of living of the common people should be improved, and it indicated that the trickle-down effect of investment has some, loopholes. What is trickle-down effect? Trickle-down effect means if you can attain higher growth in your output, then trickle-down theory suggests that if the total output of the country can be increased, then all the sections of the people will be equally benefited. But that may not be true. So there are limitations of trickle-down theory. Therefore, this strategy that was being followed during the 6th 5-year plan period, it indicated that some particular programs should be undertaken by the government so as to address that poverty, unemployment problems in rural areas, and hence we find some specific action programs like integrated rural development program, which in short it is called IRDP or NREP, National Rural Employment Program. All these programs were taken up by the government so as to attain that target of benefit for the common people or to alleviate the poverty and unemployment problem. So this was the strategy, to be very much specific, followed during the 6th 5-year plan. Now coming to that 7th 5-year plan. Now this 2nd 5-year plan adopted a different strategy. The strategy is called as the agricultural development-led strategy. See the difference between that 2nd 5-year plan and the 7th 5-year plan. In the 2nd 5-year plan, strategy was industrial growth. 7th 5-year plan is agriculture development-led strategy, and it was following a model propounded by the C.N. Vakil and P.R. Brahmanand, which we call as wedge goods model. Now, what is this model all about? This model tells you that if you can produce some wedge goods, what are the wedge goods? Wedge goods means goods which are being purchased by the workers with their wages. For example, your food crops, some the basic needs of the people, common workers. So these are the consumption goods of the workers. We call them wedge goods. So if you can generate some wedge goods, then you can employ more labor to create more capital in such a manner that in future those capital items can be engaged for the production of more wedge goods, and you can attain that strategy. That means the objective of growth with justice, growth with more benefit for the common people. And here the strategy gave more importance to the agricultural sector. Now coming to the 8th 5-year plan, there was a dramatic shift in the strategy. It started from 1992, and we know that during 1990s, our economy, Indian economy, faced huge crisis. The external balance, internal balance, and the economy or the planners had to take some new economic policy or the liberalized economic policies since 1991. So 1992-97, 8th 5-year plan model introduced a new strategy which we call as export-led strategy or outward-oriented strategy, with the basic foundation of some, this privatization, liberalization, and globalization. And here we observe that in this new economic policy, to just attain this particular objectives during this 8th 5-year plan, wanted some macroeconomic stabilization policy or short-run demand management policy so as to address the problems like inflation, like say our balance of payments, unfavorable balance of payments problem. So as to address this problem, some macroeconomic stabilization policies were adopted, and some structural adjustment policies were also adopted so as to address the long-run supply-side problems. That means this industrial policy, export-import policies, all these policies were reformed so as to attain long-run supply efficiency. So 8th 5-year plan adopted export-led growth. It was a complete deviation from the earlier plans with regard to the policies, those which were adopted by the government of India. And now coming to the 9th 5-year plan, which began in 1997, continued up to 2002, what we observe that the continuation of that old strategy that was adopted during the 8th 5-year plan. In 9th 5-year plan, it also adopted that export-led strategy, now with a greater emphasis on the utilization of the full potential of the private sector. Now the role of the government has changed. Previously, before 1991, the role of the government was the controller. Government wanted to control every sector. Now the government is a facilitator of the private sector. So the role has changed, and it wanted to create an environment, which is congenial for the expansion of the private sector. So it wanted to establish a free market economy. That means the production and consumption decisions will be guided by the free market forces of supply and demand. We call it neoliberal policy. Here, the government intervention in this economic policies will be listed, and every production and consumption activities within the economy will be guided by the market forces. That is all about the 9th 5-year plan. And now coming to the 10th 5-year plan. 10th five-year plan is also, the strategy is almost similar to that of the 9th five-year plan. That means continuously during the 3 5-year plans, you are adopting a strategy. Strategy means, as I have already told, the long-term growth policy, long-term growth objective. You are to attain that objective. That means here your objective is to make your economic activities more efficient. Different sectors should be more efficient. It should be efficient in terms of that it should withstand the competition from the foreign, say, competitors, so that you create an environment of free economy. But in 10th five-year plan, in addition to this free economy concept, gradually that emphasis point shifted to some extent towards the role of the state for improvement of infrastructure and development of social sector. This was the two say particular points which is very important. That means during the 10th five-year plan, that is during 2002-2007, government now realized that still the problem is there. That means problem of inequality is there. That means the government must step in. Government must take some steps, and government should step into those areas where the private sectors do not want to step in. That means government should develop infrastructure. If infrastructure is still lagging, we know that government should say expand the infrastructural facilities in rural areas through the expansion of cold chains, storage facilities, etc. And the social sector, that means education, health, that should also be developed properly in some of the areas. Now coming to the 11th five-year plan, that continued from 2007 to 2012. And first time this plan, 11th five-year plan, emphasized on inclusive growth. The strategy was inclusive growth. This is very important. Inclusive growth means the growth of the economy, growth in terms of growth of output, growth of GDP or GNP or per capita GDP or GNP, whatever. The growth should be inclusive in the sense that the fruits of growth, the benefits of growth should touch all sections of the people. That means the common people should get benefit from this growth process. Therefore, you must understand that inclusiveness in the growth process. For example, if you take into account the financial inclusiveness, which is very important. Now, Bank for International Settlements, Switzerland, BIS, has indicated that if you want to establish financial inclusiveness, then you must give emphasis on 3 aspects. Number 1, accessibility. Number 2, usage. And number 3 is quality. What is accessibility? Accessibility means the range of financial service which are available to customers. That means you must have enough services, financial service, so that different customers can access it, number 1. For example, in the rural area, if you do not have any bank, then how you can access that particular facility, financial service facility? Second is usage. For example, you have an access, but you are not using it. So, in case of, for example, micro, small and medium enterprises in India, MSME. In MSME sector, you create some credit facilities for them, but some of the MSMEs may not accept, may not use it. So, this is called as self-exclusion. You are excluding yourself, but it is voluntary. There may be some involuntary exclusion. Involuntary exclusion means you want some service, but you are not getting it. But self-exclusion means you are getting it, but you are not using it. So, inclusive growth means you should minimize both involuntary exclusion as well as self-exclusion. And the service, quality of service should be improved. Therefore, these are some of the strategies. Inclusive growth is very important strategy which was being followed during the 11th five-year plan. Now, during the 12th five-year plan, the strategy was almost same, just like 11th five-year plan, that is inclusiveness. Here, inclusiveness is explained in terms of the poverty, reduction in inequality, reduction in regional imbalance, etc. So, if you can reduce this type of insufficiency in the economy, you can make our growth more inclusive. So, the objective, that strategy was also sustainable growth. So, you are to use more green technology and you are to reduce the carbon emission. Now, during the action plan taken by the Niti Aayog during 2017-20, again, the objective was to attain more growth for the common benefit for the common people. And the strategies were, number 1, participatory development, number 2, balanced growth, and number 3, a sustainable development strategy. Participatory development means all the people should participate in the development process. Balanced growth means across the region, across the sectors, there must be a proper coherence, proper balance in the growth process. And number 3, a sustainability. That means we must ensure growth also in such a way that we must ensure at least a consumption level as we are having now for our future generation. So these were all the strategies, and from this discussion you can well understand that how strategies changed from plan to plan and why the strategies were taken. And thank you so much for attending this MOOC course.